Hello everyone and welcome back to a new season of Drink of the Gods, the beer edition. And I'm going to be enjoying this series very much and I hope you do too. This whole series I'm just going to be drinking beer. It's a dirty job, but someone's going to do it, right? As you can imagine, I'm going to be having a lot of fun, but I'm not just going to be drinking beer, guys. I'm going to be reviewing and analysing the beer and kind of giving you guys my feedback and hopefully maybe kind of introducing you into beers that you've never had before or teaching you certain things about beer that you never knew, because of course part of this series will also be not just tasting and reviewing but also how beer is made and other qualities of beer, like what is maltiness and how is it brought into the beer and all those kind of things. Anyway guys, that's enough of the admin. Let's get down to what we really want to do, and that's taste some beer. So the beer that we're going to be looking at today, guys, is this one right here. And the name of this beer is Bière Tripele Traditionnelle. Kind of rolls off the tongue, right? It's quite a nice name, to be honest. And I mean, my French isn't the best, but it says Bière, 3 grains, or 3 grain in this case, right? Basically, this is a beer made with 3 different grains. So suffice to say that grain creates maltiness, okay? So the fact that we've got 3 types of grain in this, be interesting to see how that comes across. And maltiness typically exhibits itself as either a caramel like texture or taste, or with an almost roasty, sort of toasty aspect to the flavour also. We'll see how it exhibits itself in here. Sometimes the theory doesn't always come into practice. So I've never really had French beer before. I am English, I'm proud to be English, and I like my English beer, right? And we do damn good beer at that. But it's actually nice to be starting with something completely different to what I would normally be having. It's also described as an imported beer. Now, from general experience, I typically find that imports are stronger than their standard counterpart. So we could have something that could give me a nice night's sleep, let's put it that way. And looking at the back on the bottle, yeah, I'm quite correct on that. Not only is this quite a large bottle, 750 mils, that's quite big for a bottled beer, but it's also got an alcoholic content of 6%. Most people will probably be used to 4 or 5% beer. So that extra percent doesn't make too much of a difference, but it really can, and that can exhibit itself again in the taste of the beer. Sometimes when a beer is very, very strong, that alcohol can come through. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing remains to be seen. A lot of the Belgian beers, for example, they're very high on alcoholic content, as I say, pushing towards a sort of 10 to 14% range. And it's, well, do you like alcohol or not, really, I suppose, is a question to ask yourself. Most people don't like that. That kind of feeling when you drink something, they just want to mellow out, right? So I'm quite glad that it's strong, because I like my strong beers. 6% is a good strength to a beer, but it's not overly strong either. One of my bugbears about beer in general is that very rarely do you find that the manufacturers, the brewers, okay, the breweries, put on their bottle what type or what style of beer it is. Very rarely do they say, oh, this is, a Tosk-like beer, for example. You rarely get that. So you kind of have to work it out yourself. Now, for that purposes, I have already drank some of this beer to try and work it out from tasting it and stuff, and also looking, obviously where it's from and everything. I've worked out what type of beer it is. Now, most people are not going to be bothered about what style of beer it is, but obviously from a review perspective, it's important that I share that with you and potentially get you used to different styles of beer. Now, this is what is called a Bière de garde, which is like a beer of the army or soldier or something in French, right? So it's a French beer. In fact, specifically, it is a French ale. French ales vary anywhere from 4.5% strength all the way up to 8%. So this is kind of right in the middle for what you'd expect for a beer of this style. Now, is it an ale or is it a lager? Well, actually it is a hybrid. Okay, it's one of the rare hybrid styles. So it is a little bit of a lager and it is also a little bit of an ale, meaning it's kind of made using 2 different types of yeast. Again, ultimately that's just technicalities, but it gives you a clue on how this is going to taste before you have it. And when you start understanding the styles of beer, you can make better informed decisions when you go and you check out the shelves. Oh, that bottle looks nice, I'll have that. Because let's be real, no one wants to buy a beer that they're not going to enjoy. So it's good to kind of get used to judging beers before you even open them and take a sip, right? But I'm guilty this time. I went for this beer because I thought, wow, that bottle is pretty. I have not seen a stopper cap on a bottle of beer in a long time. In fact, it's quite a rarity. And obviously it is eye-catching. The size of the bottle as well is also impressive. It's nice to have a 750ml bottle. It's a little bit more substantial in quantity than what I'm typically used to. The nice thing about the stopper cap as well, not only does it look pretty and catch your eye, but it's, oh, what a satisfying sound opening that. Ugh. And you can imagine what that sounded like when, of course, the bottle was full. And of course, a functional point as well, this beer can be resealed so that if you are outside, which is a great place to drink beer, out in a field, for example, or in a beer garden, enjoying the glorious sun that never comes to England, then of course, a beer like this, being able to seal it, is really good because it stops you spilling it, obviously, and also it stops bugs getting in and all the rest of it, right? So as I mentioned, I actually have already tasted this beer, and you're going to see a little bit of footage now showing me enjoying this beer from last night, and also just showing you what the beer looks like as a whole. Now, the way that I'm going to review beer in this series is I'm going to do I'm going to try and tackle 4 main things to give you a very full and complete review of what the beer is like, but using as many of the senses as I possibly can. That is, I'm going to use my eyes and I'm going to describe the way the beer looks. I'm going to use my nose and tell you the way the beer smells. I'm then obviously going to drink it, and I'm going to drink it all, and I'm going to very much enjoy it, but then partake to yourself the knowledge of what it tastes like. And from that, I'll also be able to tell you the general character of the beer and the experience that I have from it. I suppose that's touch, is it? I don't know. Emotion, thoughts, feelings, I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to do those 4 qualities. For every beer that I have, I'm going to tell you the way they look. I'm going to describe their look, their aroma, their taste, and their experience stroke character. Okay? So looking at the beer, obviously you can't tell what the beer looks like inside the bottle. It's a brown glass bottle. One of my favorites, actually. Brown and green glass is gorgeous. You know, I don't like to see beer in a clear glass. Maybe that's just the Englishman in me, but I like a brown or green beer bottle, right? But when we pour it out into a glass, it's clear to see immediately that this is a clear, very clear beer. There's no haziness to it whatsoever. The colour is what I would describe as pale, but it has a slight amber aspect to it also. So it's not completely pale, but it's most certainly not dark. And I think this really comes across because, of course, this is a hybrid style of beer. So it's a mix of ale and lager in its fermentation process and the way it's been made. And so it does have a sort of, as I say, a crossover in colour also. You can see immediately that there's very low carbonation, so there's not a lot of bubbles in it. And the head on the beer is very strong. You pour that into the glass, even when you tip and angle the glass to reduce the size of the head being produced, it still produces quite a nice strong head. It's not overly strong, not overly large, but it's very there. So we say the head is very much has a presence on the beer, and it doesn't go away very quickly either. And the head of the beer actually comes, and that strong head on a beer comes from the hops that are used. So it's clear to see that the brewers here have used quite a lot of hops and quite a lot of interesting hops to produce that long-lasting and very full head. The next thing, of course, is to 100% take in the aroma of the beer. So Oh yeah, breathe it in, lads, it's good for the lungs. Stick that nose in that bottle or over that glass. I actually find the aroma is easier to smell from the bottle instead. And just take in the scent of the beer and try to work out how the brewer has manufactured this beer long before you even taste it. Get an idea on what flavors are going to be hitting your tongue and what kind of experiences you're going to have just from the scent. It's a little hard to do to start off with, but most definitely something that you can easily build up, and it's an essential thing to do also, because a lot of our taste actually comes from our scent. If you hold your nose when you eat something, you don't really taste it. So you want to be breathing in the aroma of the beer to get a full experience of what it's going to be like. Now, when I was sniffing, snorting, whatever you want to say, the beer, oh yeah, I noted that the aroma of the beer was, at first I was a little confused, because of course before tasting it I didn't know what style of beer this was. I had to taste it to obviously work it out, and I was like, wow, this has a very much a lager like smell to it, but then there's an almost earthy note that you get only with ales, strong ales. And I was like, I can't work it out. Is it going to be a lager? Is it going to be an ale? And of course then when I found out it was a hybrid, oh, it all made sense. As I say, when I tasted it and I was like, that is a French hybrid. Yeah, the penny dropped, obviously. And when I was smelling the beer, the aroma of this beer was actually very, very minimal. I could barely smell it, which is unusual because most beers can be quite a strong scent to them. A lot of modern beers, at least anyway, because the kind of craze at the moment is to add a lot of hops in the brewing process at the end of the brewing process. Which with a lot of essential oils, hops that contain a lot of essential oils, which give this strong, pungent, hoppiness like smell with additional notes to it. But there was very little scent to this, and it's as a result quite a traditional, quite an old-fashioned way of making beer, because what it does is it creates bitterness. By adding the hops to the beginning, and hops that don't typically have a lot of essential oils in them, you get a beer that is highly bitter. The earlier you put it in, the more bitter the beer is going to become. So obviously was already expecting, from smelling the aroma, taking in the aroma of the beer, a very bitter beer. Now, dare I say, I could pick up a slight floral note in the aroma. Sometimes beers have, weird smells and tastes added to them that actually really work. And this did have a slight floral note, but it was very minor, very hard to pick up, and I wasn't expecting to taste it. It was just, it was quite a nice higher note over the general hoppiness of the beer. So if the hoppiness of the beer is here, kind of you taking it in, there's just that subtle higher note of floral aspects to the aroma also. But as I say, the aroma as a whole, bare minimal. So then, of course, we come to tasting. And when it came to taste, I actually had a very similar reaction as I did the aroma, which is, as I say, the nose and the mouth, they're connected. You can't taste without your nose, okay? Without your sense of smell. And so when I tasted the beer initially, there was actually very little obvious taste right from the word go. There was a small amount of bitterness that began on the middle of the tongue. If you were to put your tongue against the roof of your mouth, the bit that touches the roof of your mouth was where the taste was beginning. And it had that classic lager-like taste to it, that hoppiness, but with the bitterness in it also. But it was very subtle to start off with. It was almost like not drinking anything. Is there any point? Wow, the taste evolved. It was a very delicate taste, as I say, to start with, and it remained delicate throughout. But the longer you drank the beer, and the longer after taking a sip you went, the taste developed and moved again more to the sides of the tongue over time, and you then got that strong bitterness that you get from using hops in the more traditional early stages of fermentation. I actually really like a bitter. I I suppose I say, an old-fashioned Englishman, I like a pint of bitter. But sometimes they can be a bit hard to drink. You know, they can weigh you down, a bit heavy on the stomach, a little heavy on the tongue. They can be a little overwhelming over time. But the beauty of this beer was that it had that bitterness, but because it was so delicate, it actually was refreshing. I would never say that about a bitter too much. Well, bitters can be refreshing. Yeah, they kind of wake you up a little bit sometimes when they take you back. But this was particularly refreshing because there was that bitter aspect to it, but it was so light and delicate. Not just the taste, but the general texture of the beer when you're drinking it. It didn't feel heavy in my stomach at all. It had a very light body to it. It just made it so drinkable. And the scary thing about this is if I had 10 bottles of this, 20 bottles of this, 30 bottles of it, I would be drinking it, every single last one of them, until I couldn't move, because it was that nice to drink. This beer, just from the taste and the aroma alone, I will highly recommend to guys, if you go out, as I say, into a beer garden, you're just doing a long session, you want to drink slowly, good 8-9 pints over the day in the beautiful sun when the summer finally arrives. Well, this is a beer that I would recommend doing it. If you're having a barbecue out in the garden, get a few of these in for the lads and you'll have a lovely time. Absolutely gorgeous time. Now, I touched upon the experience and the character a little bit there in the description of the taste, because of course experience or the character of the beer and taste heavily overlap, just like aroma and taste also overlap, okay? And that was by saying that this was a refreshing, light-bodied beer. That's the character of the beer. It's refreshing and light-bodied. It was bitter in contrast to, say, sour or sweet. And I would say if I had to pick between sweet and dry, it was very much a medium. It was bang right in the middle. The carbonation, as we said, when we looked at it, you could see it was very low. So it was a low carbonated beer. And that really just added to the ease of drinking it. The last thing you want is to get a big bloated stomach from a lot of carbonation. It just fills you up and makes you sometimes feel really sick, makes you want to throw up, right? Typically when you down a beer, it comes back up, right? All the froth and all that comes back up, but with a low carbonated beer like this, as I say, it only just adds to its ease of drinking, and ease of drinking a hell of a lot of it. Well guys, I really hope that kind of gave you a little insight to this beer. So to finish off, to summarize, would I recommend this beer? Yes, it's a lovely beer. It's the first Bière de garde that I've ever had. And what a great first-hand experience. This particular bottle is actually readily available also. So it is in Aldi, that's where I got it, and it's probably in a number of other supermarkets here in the UK also. Regards the Americans and Europeans, I don't know, but I'm sure you'll be able to find it. And if you're French, of course, you'll be able to find this and probably better. Now, what I will say, what I'm a little bit worried about is that it's edition limité, so it's a limited edition, okay? Whether that means the bottle, the way with the stopper cap is limited edition, or whether the beer inside itself, the way they brewed it and stuff is limited edition, I don't know. So this may not be on the market permanently, or for the long term. So what I would say is get in and drink it whilst you can. It's lovely beer, and I would certainly, if all Bière de gardes are like this, I 100% recommend trying them out. I certainly will. When I find another one, I will be buying it and very much enjoying it. Well guys, leave your thoughts and ideas in the comments below. If you've had an experience with either this beer or another Bière de garde, please put that in the comments also. I want to have a conversation with you guys, so feel free to talk to me and answer each other's questions down below also. If you like this, this series is going to go on for a long time, so please like, comment and subscribe, and check out my other content also. As you can see, I'm a bit of a power lifter, so if you like training, go to my training series, and hopefully you enjoy that content also. That's it for me now guys then. Ta-ta, thank you and goodbye for now. Bye bye.